But we were on time last week, so we're just making up for that.
Yeah, not really our fault this week.
No, we were out at someone's house and had to rush back so we could come to you live. Speaking of coming to you live, here is live on camera, sparkling narration, Miranda, while I share things around.
Yeah, well, we're late. We're late. We have a really good excuse. It's today actually we aren't really Sabbath school teachers at our Sabbath school class, though we have taught on occasion. But they decided they'd include us in the Sabbath school leaders' Sabbath school potluck, where they were going to plan for the future. So that was kind of fun. Went on over there and lunch with everyone, and we drug Aspen with us, and they managed the two of the couples who had college-age young men. They managed to trick them into coming, basically. Yes. The one couple honestly it was accidentally, left their cookies at home. And so she texted him and said, "Hey, bring us the cookies." And so eventually he did. And of course ate lunch because, he was there. So, but we didn't do that with Aspen. We didn't trick her into going. We just assumed she was going. She was part of, sort of like taking your bag with you, or taking, sandwiches to the potluck. Because
so we're bringing our daughter, just like taking a bag.
You just expect to.
Hey, Miranda, did you get the bag? Throw it in the back.
No, she was actually carrying my bag.
Okay.
So yeah.
Y'all can carry your son without me.
Wait, the bag is leaving.
Well, we appreciate all the help that Aspen is. Yes.
We appreciate every bit of it.
She went and had sparkling conversation with our old friends. But no, actually, one of the ladies there, since we had talked about Barbie for Sabbath school a couple weeks ago, at least by now, she said that she had the original Barbie that came with the striped suit, the black and white striped suit.
Yeah.
And so, people asked her, well, how much is she worth? She's like, well, I don't know. I don't look that up. But she's, wherever we go, wherever they move and such, she always makes sure to have her Barbie. She takes her Barbie because that was hers, when she was a kid. Yeah. And so Aspen looked it up while she was sitting there, and a played with one could get you $8,000, and a brand spanking new one that had never been played with could get you $23,000. Yeah. But the woman didn't seem interested in parting with her toy.
Yeah. So. Wish I'd saved some of my childhood toys, but they'd be worth something today, I know.
Yes, well, I never had a Barbie, so I can't get $8,000 for anything.
Yeah. I don't think my sister ever had the original Barbie. But
no, I think this woman's a little bit older than I am, so original Barbie would not have fallen into my age group.
Yeah, no. But anyway, yes, so here we are, and today we're telling some stories, apparently.
Right, okay, so I guess we're just going to go ahead and dive right in here. Back when my, now in their 30s, young adult children, were in elementary school, I did some substitute teaching at their school, and one day I needed to teach some 6th grade math. Well, I noticed that they were learning fractions, and so I thought, okay, well, let's see where we're at here. And all of the kids did seem to understand fractions, and I would have moved forward into the next day, except there was one kid who did not have the concept of fractions at all. And so
just like me,
I thought, well, this is easily remedied, right? You draw that circle on there, and you divide it up as if, like, that whole pie-shaped thing, and you say, well, this is 1/8, and this is 1/2, and this is how it works, right?
I never got that. Like, that was in our math book, and then my teacher would do that too. It's like, I don't get it. All right, well, and you draw it, and it's the same picture in my math book, and I'm like, if I don't get it here, what makes you think? Because I struggled with fractions. Like, I don't know why it was so hard. I mean, you look at it now, it seems like, well, it's fractions, it's easy. But boy, back then, I she's just so you know, she's not talking about me, but I couldn't get fractions either. I'm horrible at math, as is Aspen. I passed that gene on to her. I think she's doing better than I did. No, she's not doing
She doesn't do too bad sometimes. Yeah. So anyways, he just looked at me very blankly, and I thought, well, we'll try something else. So I don't know. I probably drew 8 apples or something, and that still didn't work maybe. And then I moved on with probably 8 different things I could think of, and nothing was working. So finally I thought, this kid is a boy. I'll bet he likes to play with cars. Maybe that will spark something. So I drew 8 cars up on the board, and I explained, all right, this is 1/8. If we have 1, if you get 1 car, and there's 7 left up here, you have 1/8. And he got it. All of a sudden, the light went on in his eyes, and he understood how the basic premise of fractions worked. And so that's always fun when you can do that for someone. And
I'm just impressed you drew 8 cars. I can't draw cars.
well, I mean, just your basic little, there's your car and here's the wheels.
Yes, I could draw boxy sedans. That's all I can ever remember.
Oh,
box.
mine were rounded, not
on,
square. Mine were rounded.
You drew
yeah.
you drew Volkswagens. That's just a little rounded at the end.
Maybe sort of, or the classic 50s car, more like that or something. Or more like a classic 50s cab or something. A square car with rounded edges.
Gotcha.
There you go. Yeah.
Aspen's actually pretty good at drawing. She's like way better than I am.
Is she?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, anybody's better at drawing than I am, so. Yeah, it's true. Aspen actually does really pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah, I like those moments where that's one of the reasons I became a teacher, is because I love those moments where it all makes sense and you can see it in somebody's eyes, where it comes together and they get it. And it's actually in education psychology, it's called the Gestalt moment. It comes together and gels, and I've had a few of those. It's a good feeling.
Mm-hmm. And it's also fun when you have that moment for yourself.
Yeah, that's what I had.
Yes.
Like my classic Gestalt moment story is like I failed sophomore English in high school like twice, and I just couldn't get it. Diagramming was what I just could not understand, and she's the queen of diagramming, but I never got it.
I honestly love diagramming. Diagramming was so easy in a sense because there were all the rules for it, and you just had to follow the rules, and then there you go, it was done. I much prefer that to trying to write something, because then you would actually have to think about that. You didn't have to think about diagramming. You just followed the rules, and it was done.
And I was the other way. Give me a story to make up and write, but don't ask me to diagram.
Yeah.
But I was teaching then. Years later, my first teaching job, I had to teach freshman English, and it was diagramming, and I was just doing what the book said, and I still didn't get it. And it was an amazing moment. I was sitting there, and it's like magic. It really is. It's like it all just, these shattered pieces just came together and made this clear picture. And I stopped, and I was like, wow, and my kids thought I was having a stroke. They're like, what's wrong? And I was like, I get this. I understand this. And it was a real thing for me, and they were just thinking like, you're the teacher. You should understand it. So I had to explain, no, I've never got this in my life. Look how simple this is. And it was cool. We ended up, it was a fun moment because then we ended up creating this chart. It was how to find any part of speech in any sentence. And it was just a process of elimination. Find this, cross it out, find this, cross it out. What you got left is what you're looking for. And we made it, we diagrammed out of everything and just had a diagramming party, and it became fun. Once I understood it, it was like, oh, this is fun. But boy, not getting something is more frustrating. And, I think that happens a lot in Bible and religion and spirituality too. It's like you may hear it and you may see it and you may have been told, and you just don't get it. It's in those moments where it actually comes together and you get, oh, that's what this means. That's what this looks like.
Yes, and you can see it because all of a sudden it applies to your own personal life.
Yeah.
And maybe you actually had to go through some experiences before now you fully understand, or
Right.
more fully understand at least,
Yeah.
what it means because you've actually experienced
Yeah,
that.
exactly. I think that's exactly right. Experience, yeah.
Yeah. So okay. So occasionally I get some ideas for what we talk about here at SALT from the Sabbath school that we go to. Usually, someone will ask a question that, well, it sort of seems easy. There's no and people give answers, but they're more like the same old tired, worn, cliche answers, rather than something that you're like, yeah, that's what it is. And I'll have to admit, when these two questions were asked, I didn't have a really good answer myself. Like, it's something you had to think about first. So, number one question recently was, how do we have a relationship with Jesus? And you think, well, I have a relationship with Jesus, but how does that happen? What does it look like? And two, what does it mean to have an all-day attitude of prayer? And I had to think about that one a little bit as well, because does anybody, you feel like, really spend all day in like an attitude of prayer? You kind of wander off here and there. Okay, so we're comfortable with these questions as statements, rather than asking them as questions. Like, we can say, yes, we should be in an attitude of prayer all day, and we're like, yes, amen, absolutely, we should do that. But then we don't have any real concept of what that is like. So I gave the question some thought, and obviously they pretty well go hand in hand, right? To have a relationship with Jesus, we do need to be in an attitude of prayer. It kind of reminds me, well, actually a little bit about what I'm going to talk about here in just a moment. But for couples who work at home, for example, both of them work from home, it said the main problem with that is that now they have an opportunity for more conversation. And more conversation is not always a good thing because it can lead to more disagreements. And, if we're spending all day in an attitude of prayer, that means more conversation with Jesus. And I think we could certainly find ourselves in more opportunities to disagree basically with how he wants us to do things.
You're talking about like in COVID, when people were forced to stay together?
Oh, that, and now couples, maybe they started business together, or they are. Post-COVID, now they both work from home instead of... but yes, a lot of those articles were written during COVID.
I'd like to see some stats on how many couples broke up over the
Yeah.
COVID. I know some. I read articles on some where and this was, all of a sudden, either they weren't married, they were going to, and they decided not to, or people break up. And I guess I remember specifically I was reading articles about late night TV show hosts like Stephen Colbert and his wife, and Jimmy Kimmel and his wife, and they just had talked about what it was like, because they had to do their show from home, and especially Colbert, his wife was his producer at home, and and he was talking about how hard it was because she didn't laugh at anything, and like they would have tense times and moments, and then they talked about it and everything, but he was like, just give me a giggle, give me something, I'm sitting here dying because I'm used to an audience. And then they were talking to all the hosts were talking together, and they were all saying that it's like, yeah, our wives were like right there, or my kids are right there, and like they didn't laugh at all. And you're this very popular talk show host, and you have audiences, and they're laughing. Now you're doing it at home, and your own kids are just standing there looking at you like, not funny, Dad, and it would destroy you. You're dying out there, But yeah, I don't know why I told you that. But because everybody had stress because they were forced to spend more time together. I thought some of the interesting ones, there was a couple where there was a married couple, and for whatever reason they still had contact with like the ex, and the ex happened to be there, and they were forced to all stay in the same house for like 6-7 months.
That could be very, very interesting.
That caused some issues. But yeah, being forced together, that makes it, forces you to deal with relationship issues that you might not, because you can, if you don't have, you can escape to work or something, but when you're thrown together, then you have to deal with those things.
Yeah, I do think our youngest son Colby and his wife Autumn, they have both worked from home since COVID, and I think it's helpful for them. Now, I haven't talked to him about it. I meant to ask Colby how that worked out for them. But I think it's helpful for them that they have an upstairs and a downstairs, and Colby has his office downstairs, and Autumn would have her office upstairs.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it seems like that could be helpful. You're not having to really put up, because they said some of the things would be maybe someone's on a phone call and you're trying to do something that requires some thought or whatever, and you can't get away from that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, we had some of those issues when we were forced to spend time together. Our two kitties had to deal with their conflict issues with each other.
Yes, they did, and they still have to deal with that.
Yes. Oh, you can't really see Fluff, can you? Fluff is up on the desk now.
Yes.
She might wander into the shot here.
She might very well do that.
Yes,
trying to get her little moment of fame.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, what was really interesting was Miranda sometimes, I don't know, I'm probably going to throw you all out of whack here, but she would come and she tells me her ideas, and she, we'll talk about them, so not through them, and most of the time I'm very supportive. I'm like, oh, that's good. It does. It makes sense. Da-da-da. This particular time, I wasn't disparaging per se.
Oh, for today's talk? Yeah. Disparaging.
I wasn't disparaging.
No, he just said all the greats had already tried that.
She was attempting something that's difficult.
And it was very hard to do. He said he had tried it himself in his younger days.
Yes.
And given up. And so basically, why even bother? Because it had already been done, and it would never be done perfectly, because there was no way to really encapsulate the entire idea.
Just creating an analogy on salvation, what it's like,
Yes.
An analogy basically. Everyone's C.S. Lewis has done it several, and lots of great writers and theologians and preachers try, and we get close, but we're always left with it. I just didn't quite catch it or get it or da-da-da. That's all I told her. Is like, well, yeah, a lot of greats have tried it. You go.
No. He did not add you go.
I thought you go.
That part did not come out. But I always appreciate, I always ask for and then appreciate his, I ask for his honest opinion, and then he gives it to me, and I have to give it some serious thought.
And you did.
Yes, I did give it some serious thought.
Right over the dishes.
I did. And first of all, as I left the room, I was trying not to steam, because I want what I want, and I wanted that. And so anyways, I went out to wash the dishes and, scrubbed away at the pots and pans and the cups and plates and whatever. And,
pretending they were my face.
No, I quit thinking about Brett by then, So, anyways, I told God, I was like, okay, so basically what I wanted to do was like, so maybe people had heard analogies for salvation before, but for them it didn't click, or they didn't really understand it. And I thought, I just want to come up with another one that's simple and easy, and maybe someone can identify with that and go, okay. Or if nothing else, it becomes another piece of the puzzle, like just another snapshot of who Jesus is and what a relationship of salvation with him is. Yeah. And so...
She did. It was unique.
So anyways, I told God, I was like, all right, you know what? I know I'm not C.S. Lewis or Morris Venden or anybody else that Brett had mentioned. I said, I'm just a simple girl, and I want a simple girl analogy. And so I went back to Brett with... the analogy that I had. This. And do you remember what he said? No. Do you remember what you said?
Oh, I said, well, that certainly is unique.
That's right. He did say, he said, well, that's unique.
Yeah. And I meant it in a really positive way. It's like, I've never heard that approach before.
Yeah. No doubt he had not.
I had not. It was totally new.
Yes. Okay. So basically what I'd come up with is that, salvation is being yoked up with Jesus, right? Okay? And so salvation is putting on the armor of God and letting him fight for you Salvation is not fighting for yourself. Salvation, okay, is being yoked up with God. It is like your marriage partner you work from home with 24/7. You married up, and this person provides all for you. The place you live, all that you eat, everything you wear, what you drive, it's all perfect and it's all the best, though you may not have chosen it for yourself. When you married, you became part of your in-laws' family business, and you know nothing about it, but you are willing to learn. You follow all of your marriage partner's advice about how to do business and how to interact with others to grow the family business. If you mess up, you apologize. You know what? And since they follow their own business plan, they just forgive you and move on, right? Your marriage partner's family has one thing to do and one thing only, and that is to love them and to love everyone that you do business with. And so I decided, you know what, this was not only the definition of an analogy of salvation, but it also answered those other two questions. It is what having a relationship with Jesus is all about, and it is also the attitude of all-day prayer.
Mm-hmm. And you know, one thing you thought about that when you mentioned, you said you married up. Married up.
Well,
and
I did.
No, I was going to say I did. But I used to do a sermon on, it's called Cutting a Covenant in the Old Testament. And it's,
oh yes, that's a really good one, by the way.
it's fun. It's about, you know, what's the Old Testament is really the Old Covenant, New Testament, New Covenant, and what is it like to cut a covenant. And God cut a covenant with Abraham, and we won't take time to get into all of it. But the idea is covenants were made between, you know, they were legal agreements between, you know, usually two equals. But in the covenant that God cut with Abraham, it was a definite huge marry up, basically, because you exchange cloaks, you exchange swords, you exchange things, you know. And in that covenant, you know, God actually had everything, and Abraham just didn't have anything. And it was the real definition of marrying up, and that's the covenant God cuts with it. It's the same as you're saying, it's the marriage up. You're, you know, I don't say out of your league, but yeah, you're marrying up. They have everything, and that's what you started with.
Yeah, they have everything. I mean, you may think you have some stuff, but really, compared to God, you got nothing. And actually, we have nothing. But anyways, okay, it was also an example of what humility is in our relationship with God. Okay, so this last week, my oldest daughter texted me, and she sent me this picture. Okay,
we didn't get it, did we?
What is that? Oh, I wonder, can we get that? Can you find my phone, Aspen, and get that picture? Maybe we can just show it to people.
Show it. Yeah, I would have to show it on the phone.
Yeah. So a lot of people have probably already seen this picture.
It would be interesting if we just like showed it, and you know, you just said, "Oh yeah, I remember that picture."
Yeah, absolutely. How many people would say that? Because when I saw it, okay. So anyway, she went to a thrift store. She lives in Walla Walla, Washington, and she got this picture. It was a classic picture where you have the two small children playing next to the cliff, and you have the angel that is watching over them. Yeah, and so she hung it on a wall, and I don't know, you know, what anyone else thinks when they first see that picture or when they see the picture, but you know, you look at it and you think, oh, yes, that's so great how God sends his angels to watch over the small children like that, right? And then that's it. It just kind of stays right there. I never really thought any further, right? But you know what? As adults, we too are children of God, right? And we are not only children of God, we are to become as little children. Now, in Matthew 18, the disciples came to Jesus and they said, who is the greatest in the kingdom of God? And Jesus called a small child to him, and he stood him there in the midst of them, and he said, see this small child right here? He said, you need to become as this small child, and unless you change and become like children, you will not enter the kingdom of heaven. So whoever will humble himself like this child, he is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. So Jesus basically calls out their pride, right? And he tells them to become humble. When small children play, I mean truly play as small children do, they become, they discover, and they explore, and they have moments of the awe of discovery, right? No matter how small that it is. And we need to have the attitude of a small child who is always exploring and discovering. And see, this is what needs to happen when in our relationship with God, is that we explore his Father's heart and discover the great pearls of truth that he has there for us. And we always need to be exploring the depths of his faithfulness to us. And Brett, of course, has told us about Abraham and that covenant and the depths of that in that relationship, and what God had done for Abraham and does for us.
Yeah, what he's willing to do. And the end of the covenant is, I die for you. I would die for you. That's part of the covenant. And I will die. If I break my promise to you, I would die. And so that's, God's word is faith, and God's word to us is forever. God's word never fails, because to him it's that strong of a covenant that I say I will do this, I will do this, or I am not God,
Mm-hmm. All right, so we have arrived to our last point already, and when we take a look at the story of the two worshipers, okay, and this also is a story of the Pharisee who prayed his prideful prayer, right? Mm-hmm. And then you've got the tax collector who prayed his humble prayer, God have mercy on me, a sinner. Mm-hmm. And then it says he went home and he was justified, and the humble will be exalted and the prideful will not. Basically.
So, yeah, Jesus was telling the parable. I mean, the question I think was the disciples were asking about something about the heart of God, and he told them this parable that, the Pharisee went in, and the Pharisee goes in, and, thank you, God, that I am not like this tax collector, but I am your, I'm your favorite. I'm your guy, God. I know I am, and thanks for making me so wonderful. And then the, tax collector doesn't even lift his head up because he feels, so ashamed, and, beats his chest and said, God, please, God, have mercy on me, a sinner. And then Jesus says, I tell you the truth, that man went home justified, and not the other.
Mm-hmm. What I found interesting was what Ellicott's commentary had to say about that I hadn't really noticed it before, but I'm just going to read that to make sure I get it right. But basically, Ellicott's commentary says, this man went down to his house justified rather than the other. There is something suggestive in the fact that the house, us, all right, made the test of each case. Home life is a test of the reality and acceptableness of our worship. The Pharisee, in spite of his self-glory action, betrayed a conscience ill at ease by irritability, harshness, sitting in judgment on others. The publican, not in spite of his self-condemnation, but by reason of it, went home with a new sense of peace, sharing itself in new gentleness and cheerfulness. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I thought that was kind of interesting, based on our analogy of salvation. And then, of course, Brett has a wrap that we talked about this morning, and he wrapped it up so well that I told them that, yes, this one right here. Remember we were talking about 50%. No, we don't give 50, that right. Kind of stuff right there. So there's your wrap, and it's all yours.
It's all mine.
Off to Brett, wrapping it up for us.
I'm trying to remember what I said. So we were talking about relationships. It was because your illustration came back, and it was about being in a marriage, and if you're together all the time, the business. And so in her analogy, you were the one that actually said something about 50-50.
Right. It used to be everybody was expected to give 50-50 in their marriage, and couples do. Like, I don't know if Colby and Autumn do that, but we feel like, okay, you do 50%. And like this week you wash the dishes, and next week I'll wash the dishes. And yet nobody can give 50% basically. Someone will always be giving more, and you never really end up with 100% that way.
It's interesting how psychology changes from decade to decade, because I remember probably back in high school and maybe early college where that was the, predominant, lots of, even, in churches you should give 50-50. Equal partnership, 50-50, till finally, people who were actually married and had wisdom, came along. It's like, you're crazy. It's never 50-50. It's like, sometimes, on any given day, I'm giving 80 and they're giving 20, and sometimes it's the other way around, and it's like you can't, because you never get 100% between the two of you. It's like some days are better for others, some days my, partner, my spouse, is really carrying me, and some days I'm really carrying them, and it's a give and take back and forth. And the whole idea of 50-50 is just ludicrous, when it comes to a relationship. And we tend to, as humans, we tend to take the parameters and the rules and the expectations of our relationships with other people and consciously or subconsciously place them on our relationship with God as well. And, it doesn't really work, because in our relationship with God, it's really, he's 100% all the time, has already given 100% and still gives 100%, and when we start trying to treat our relationship with God like we treat our relationship with others, that's where sometimes things break down and we get, into trouble, because, how people, in fact, in youth ministry, you get a lot of this, and that, kids will relate to God the way they relate to their parents. And so how their father or mother treat them is they take those kind of things and they put it on God as well. And so if my, father is angry and yells at me, God's judgmental, and I'm seeing generalities, but really that's how we act is coming up as kids. Our first image of God are our parents, and then we kind of tend to take those and subconsciously put it on God, and we react to God the way we react to these people in our lives. And you really have to go to the Bible and see how, Jesus reacted to the people in those stories, how he reacted to Peter, how he reacted to the woman caught in adultery, how he reacted, and that's how he reacts to us. And what he says to us, I made this covenant with you, you're my child, I will not break my word to you, or I will quit being God, and I don't know, was that what I was talking about?
Let's see. You said God has already given 100% and we do our best to give that, but fail, and his giving makes up the difference.
Oh, so yeah, in our relationship with God, wherever we fail, he's already made up the difference. And that's, the robe of righteousness, that's the justification, that's, sanctification is a process, and some days you're better than others, and some days you completely and utterly miserably fail, but it doesn't matter, because where we fail, that's where, grace and love make up the difference. And a key to that is humility, is being able to say, I have a need. I'm not perfect. Thank you that I'm not like these other people. I know I'm worse than these other people. I am, as Paul said, the chief of sinners. Having the humility to recognize your need is what leads to the justification. It makes the justification possible, because if you don't see your need, then you don't ask for anything. You don't see it, you don't think you need it.
Yeah, you have there, the Pharisee had pride, which kept him from a real relationship with God, and he was not justified even though he told himself that he was. Narcissism will eventually destroy all relationships and even our own connection with ourselves. And I thought what you had to say about narcissism this morning was interesting and tied in very well as well.
It's the great myth of Narcissus. He was so beautiful, and he shunned the attention and the adoration love of other people, or others. And in Greek mythology anyway, he shunned the love of one of the nymph gods, I think, and in retaliation he was cursed to fall in love with his own image. So he saw his own image in the reflection of the water, and he would not leave his image of the water because his image could not love him back. And so he spent the rest of his life wasting away trying to get love from his own image, when he could never have that connection, never have that, nothing would ever come back, and he wasted away and died because he was so in love with himself, basically. And that's what narcissism does, when you're so enthralled with you and yourself and your wants and your needs and your, it tends to destroy and kill all other relationships, because the most important thing becomes your needs, your wants, yourself. And really, all relationships will wither and die, and eventually so will we, because we can never get that connection and love from ourselves that we get from having a connection truly to God and other people.
Yes.
That was that. Just made me think of Greek mythology. So there you have it.
There you have it.
And we're going to have Aspen say something, but now I don't remember what it was.
Oh, I think we cut that part out, remember?
Oh, we cut that part out. Sorry. We cut the bag out. We left it in the sidewalk. And Aspen is not. Anyway, so yeah, that was today, and I don't know, anything else?
Not for today, no.
No? Okay. Well, here we are at the end, and I didn't plan for anything to say. So, hope you had a good day. We're actually talking in our Sabbath school. That's where we were at. We were meeting, trying to decide what we're going to do for the next couple of quarters. And I think at one point, they had thought I was going to be a regular teacher, but now with school starting, I just, no, there's too much going on for me to be a regular, once a month teacher. Because Aspen's in school. If you didn't see her picture, they took pictures of Aspen, her first day of school.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't take pictures of me, my first day of school.
You haven't had your first day of school yet.
I did at the academy. I teach at the academy and the university. I have 2 jobs. And I teach drama and video at the academy.
Mm-hmm. So that we can afford to pay for Aspen to
so
go
Aspen
to school.
can go to school. Anyway, so yeah, well, thanks for joining us, and hope you have had a good Sabbath day. And we'll see you here next week.